Gosh, do you want to go ahead and start? For some reason, I don't hear you. Just wanted to confirm. Can you all hear me? All right,
Yes, sir.
so we'll start then. All right, so we already started. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for attending this session. All, I just wanted to thank you and of course taking the time for this session. So today I'll be talking to you about connecting your systems without code using MuleSoft Composer. So just to introduce myself, I'm Joey Chan. I'm a Salesforce MVP and a MuleSoft mentor. I've also been privileged to be #1 rated developer on the App Exchange. Have 26 times certified, both system and application architect. I'm also certified on as a developer and platform architect. I lead the MuleSoft, the admin community in Manila, Philippines, and I'm also the organizer for Philippines Dreamin and Dreamin. All right. With that, we'll have to talk about automation in general, right? So, what is the problem? What is the Salesforce solution? So, with the demands of IT, one of the biggest problems with technology in general is that as we progress in our business need, there's actually only so much delivery capacity for the IT, right? So how can we actually solve that? Right now we have this today, and there's so much consumption and innovation that we need in order to keep progressing the businesses, right? So one of the biggest things with Salesforce you'll realize is that biggest focus. With that, one of the things that we actually need is empower non-technical people in order to create automations, right? The previous sessions, and there's going to be quite a number of talks about Salesforce flows. So basically, this is the low-code automation tool if you actually need to automate things within Salesforce. So the official name now is Salesforce. Use the flow builder in order to build things, right? But the question is, how do you then automate if you need to connect with different systems? Now, we now have this tool called MuleSoft Composer, wherein admins, consultants, and non-technical people can actually build simple integrations without any code. So if you already have the skills, for example, to build a flow in Salesforce flows, this is going to be something that's going to be easy to pick up. Basically, what you need, for example, in order to build flow is you need to understand what's the business requirement, right? So for example, depending on a certain condition, for example, if opportunity gets closed won, what do you want to happen? Do you want to, let's say, send a Slack message? Do you want to send a text message or even call using Twilio integration? We'll be talking about later today. So question is, what is MuleSoft Composer? So it's actually an offering as a part of the MuleSoft Automate package. So it's basically a no-code integration tool. So this is something that actually within Salesforce. Although take note, this even though you can actually create flows within Salesforce, in the back end, it's actually based on the MuleSoft. So I'll be talking about the details there later, but I'll focus on who is it for first. So we have all of these different roles, right? So we have Salesforce admins, architect, developers, marketer, and consultants, right? So how can actually these people benefit from it, right? For example, if you're a Salesforce admin, typically you would need help from IT if you need third-party application, especially if they don't have an existing connector or App Exchange app, right? So let's say even Salesforce flows right now have capabilities to do some integration, but you actually need Apex in order to do that. So you need the Apex developer in order to create invocable actions, right? But with MuleSoft Composer, as long as there's a connector or the HTTP connector supports integration, you can actually create it on your own without necessarily working with IT. Also, for architects, we all need to understand developers are quite a tight resource. Most are quite swamped in terms of requirements, but at the same time, how can we actually architect the whole Salesforce org in a way that is scalable, right? And we need to understand how it actually fits into the overall ecosystem for solutions. And then even Salesforce developer, the question is, we need to understand when do we need to use Apex and when do we need to leverage a lot of these low-code solutions like Salesforce Flows and MuleSoft Composer. So even Salesforce marketer benefit from this. Yes, we already have connectors for let's say Marketing Cloud, but Salesforce can also trigger from Salesforce to Marketing Cloud. There are already existing connectors for it. And for Salesforce consultants, basically, whoever it is that you're helping your clients, you need to actually understand what are all of the different possible options in order to help them succeed, right? And there are so many options, and at each price point, depending on the features that you need and the scalability, governance needs. So, yep. With that, we'll focus, and then we'll talk about different considerations. All right. So today I'll be talking about what is Composer and how we can actually easily create a sample flow. So after installing MuleSoft Composer, this is what you'll see within your org. One thing to take note, there is no sandbox in Composer. So this is something that many of us may be aware of, because normally if you're building flows, you build things in the sandbox first and then deploy it to production, right? In a way, when you have MuleSoft Composer, there's actually creating one instance of Anypoint platform. Each time you save, it's actually going to save into that instance. So let's now go ahead and create our flow. From here, we just need to select on a new flow. A birthday reminder. So from here, we have different options in terms of event source. It could either be scheduled or it can either be based on a system event. These are some of the supported connectors right now. But take note, for example, for Salesforce, org that we're currently in is not the only org that we can connect to. For example, we can connect to a sandbox and have it trigger something and then to another sandbox. So there's also that use cases of being able to send data between different Salesforce orgs, or even from Salesforce to NetSuite, Salesforce to SAP. Those are all different options. So from here, in order to make it a bit easier, on the scheduler. So from here, we just need to select how often it needs to run. We can, for example, do it daily. And then let's name this birthday notification 11. All right. And then what do you want to do every day? So from here, what we can do is we can then grab the data. What we have to do is connect to Salesforce, meaning this specific instance. So we can select Salesforce. I've actually already connected this specific org. So we just need to select that. And then from there, the question is, what do we need to do? So in my case, we need to get the records, contact records that has a birthday for today. So I've actually prepared a quick query for it in the back end. So I've actually created the field name is birthday. So let me just quickly show you how it looks like. Object Manager. And there are fields. I simply created the formula named is birthday. That would tell us, hey, is today's date the birthday of this person, right? So you can see here, it's simply a formula. It's the day, it's the date of the month and the year. And then it will simply return true if it's, in this case, it's November 10, even if it's 1980, it's today's birthday. So from here, we'll just grab the contact records. So here, we'll want to be very efficient here, right? So we only need to get the fields that we want. So we could get the ID, the name, just get all of these. You also want to get the mobile phone, and that is birthday. Let's just grab these two, just in case we need it later on. From here, we have to add the conditions. So we only want the ones with the mobile phone, for example. It's not empty. And then from here, you also want day is true. And then now the next question is, what do you want to do with this? Take note, even if there's actually only one record here, it will give us a list of records, so meaning a collection. In order to process that, we have to each one. So we need to use this for each, and then we can get from the list of contacts. And then, of course, make sure to keep on saving at each point, all right? So from here, what do we then, in this case, we'd like to send a text message, for example. So under system action, we can choose, for example, to send a Twilio message. So I've actually already connected with Twilio. So you can simply sign up. You could get the account as ID and token. Take note, it's very cheap to be able to send messages. You could get a phone number in the US, $1 every month. And then each SMS or call would cost 1 cent for each one. So I'll just select this. And then you have an option of either sending a message or making a phone call. In this case, let's just send a quick message. And then from here, we'll just use the mobile phone. And then the from number, I'll actually just grab it from here. It's simply something.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Just continuing to share the screen again. Sorry about that. There you go. All right, you can see my screen now. We'll continue on creating this custom expression. So from here, we could add the first name, right? And then from here, we could apply. And then let's save this. And then we can then test it out. All we have to do is click on this test. It will then deploy to the Anypoint platform. And then it will start the processing. So you'll see here it's now processing. Finished. So it tried to get one record, it found this one. And then it also actually sent this specific message, right? So if we check Google Voice, we we can see that this is a new message. And then what else can you do? The nice thing about this is you can easily orchestrate any other integrations. All you have to do is just edit it more. And then from here, what else do you want to do, for example? Rather than simply sending a message, what if you also want to, for example, hey, make sure to send a really nice gift because this client is paying a lot of money, right? So you could connect with Slack. So in order to do that, we could either create a new one or use existing one. So we'll just use this and then message to a channel, send direct message to a specific user. In this case, we can pick from a pick list. And here is what we can use. So select myself, and then same thing here. It is, and then let's select the full name. So we can apply, and then no need to do anything else. From here, we can just do a quick test again. And then let's just wait for it. One thing to take note about the scheduler is that right now, it's actually not yet schedule it to run for a specific time of the day. So let's say if you want to run it at 9 a.m. every day, what you have to do is make sure you activate it at 9 a.m. You can't really tell it when to process it yet. So it actually just finished. It already sent this one. And then if we actually go to Slack, this is what we see, right? The name's birthday and then the message. So you'll see that is to easily create integrations using MuleSoft Composer, right? So going back to the slides, right now there's 26 connectors now. So we have different use cases for NetSuite, for Jira, QuickBooks for business needs, right? So, and then the question is, why MuleSoft Composer versus the alternatives, right? Take note, there are cheaper options, but one of the biggest you'd consider MuleSoft is actually a different, is when you need to actually have integration between multiple products. So one of the biggest things is security, right? Quite a lot of companies trust Salesforce in MuleSoft. They have different accreditations, especially if you're from, let's say, government, or if you need to comply with certain regulations. It's very important to make sure that they have those proper. And then the biggest things is actually governance. Take note, you could, for example, use other tools. There are other existing ones, like, for example, Make.com or formerly Integromat. There are other options, but at the same time, the problem there is how do you make sure that only the ones that need access should be able to access, right? So if you don't necessarily care about that or don't find value in that, there are also other options. And then at the same time, flexibility, right? So it's actually consumption based. There are many different options out there, but this also provides you a credit based, meaning, for example, for Composer, you could use your credits on RPA or other solution. And then it's also scalable. It's actually a MuleSoft automation platform. So in a way, if you think about it, these are what large enterprises use to handle millions of transactions daily. So it's also a central hub for end-to-end automation. So you can actually have a lot of your orchestration in one place rather than dealing with multiple different systems. And then it's actually a product called RPA, MuleSoft RPA. And then when that would be endpoint platform, wherein if you need something more complex, you then consider endpoint platform in order to your integrations. And then the question there is for architects, when do you decide when to use MuleSoft Composer or endpoint platform? So the main thing to consider is who is going to be the target audience, right? Is it going to be Salesforce admins or business users? Or are we talking about developers? MuleSoft Composer is really targeted towards business users and admins, mainly because it's less technical. They imagine the capabilities that you have in the Composer is actually a subset of what you can get from the endpoint platform. They try to make it simple and, in a sense, only the things that you may need in order to create some basic integrations. It's also important to consider what are the number of systems that we need to connect to. If we're dealing with 30, 50 systems, we need to make sure that we're actually using endpoint platform. If there's so many systems involved, let's say 30, 50, 100, we need to make sure that the Composer is not something that we would actually recommend. So something good, important to consider is existing connectors. There's actually much less Composer connectors compared to the endpoint platform, mainly because endpoint platform is so much more mature. It's been there for years. And MuleSoft Composer is still a fairly new product, but take note, it's actually been evolving. I think more or less every couple of months, we actually have new connectors. So at the same time, in the complexity is something we have to consider. Endpoint platform is best suited for really complex integrations. And then other thing is data volumes. Are we talking about large data volumes, like handling millions of records? If yes, we should be using endpoint platform. And then do we have any performance requirements? There are large enterprises where they actually need to be able to handle the requests of, let's say, 1,000 requests per minute. This is something that's not best suited for MuleSoft Composer. With that, some of the top use cases is, let's say if we need to integrate between different orgs, it's a tool that you can use. So let's say if you create a new contact here or a new case in one org, you also want to sync that to another org. Those are possibilities. You can also sync, of course, custom objects. And then for business use cases, let's say if you need to move, we're talking about opportunities here. So if we change the stage to close one, we want to send that data over to a business system like a NetSuite or QuickBooks. And then another one would be dealing with notification, right? Which is exactly what we talked about. So let's say if you have an emergency, for example, you could actually create something that would, for example, send the Slack notification automatically, text messages, and if it's something urgent enough, we may actually even use Twilio to make a call to maybe 3 to 5 people just to make sure that everyone is aware and on top of things, right? So question now is, what are our considerations when using it? First things first, it's not yet possible to trigger from Salesforce flows directly or platform events. One way you could do this is you could actually do it based on Salesforce creation or Salesforce update. So you could, for example, create a new custom object that would then be triggering the flows that you create on MuleSoft. You cannot reuse Composer flows yet. I believe they're actually working on it right now. One thing that they're planning to do is create webhooks, meaning through API calls, you can create or at least trigger these Composer. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it's not yet possible to schedule it to run on a specific time. You need to go in at that specific time of the day and start activating it from there. And then currently there's no lower environments. There's only one instance. There's a reason for that. They really want to make it as easy as possible for both business users and admins to be able to use it. But take note, the way we do this is change the connector. Of course, we have to be testing in the sandbox, right? So the way we do it, we change the connection to the sandbox. We simply change the connection over to production. At that point, you're simply using the same flow. And then there's no built-in versioning yet. The way you deal with this is you have to keep on cloning the flows and then make sure you have proper naming conventions. And then note is because it's actually living outside Salesforce, it's actually going to use API calls. Right? With that, question is how to get access. So some bad news for those that doesn't work for partners, Salesforce partners and MuleSoft. It's something that you won't be able to get access to yet. But some good news is that you can actually sign up for a free. And I'm not sure about the current schedules right now. I believe they're rolling out more workshops. So basically, this will give you access for, I think, 1 or 2 days in order to actually create your own MuleSoft Composer flows. And then there's also a lot more Trailhead badges in this MuleSoft Composer Trail Mix if you want to learn more. And then with that, make sure to also join there's a group for MuleSoft Composer. One of the best places to be in, mainly because there's the PMs of the product that's actually there responding. So if you have any feature requests, places to ask. And then, as I mentioned, they're actually on the usage-based pricing. There's actually 2 models. One is based on purely just Composer, and then it gives you 2.5 million tasks. Consider a task, so you have to consider that. And then the other option is the MuleSoft Automate package. This is where you have RPA, Composer, and also the endpoint platform as a starting point. All right, and then some conversions. So we have 56 credits here, and then each credit is considered either 2 RPA bot minutes, 100 API for the RPA, or 50 Composer tasks. With that, that's it for me. To stay in touch, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. All right. Thank you. I guess questions. Recording.